All right, so this is a quick tutorial for you guys as you design your expert group investigations, and these are tips for designing a strong Google presentation. So your Google presentation is where you are going to present the information that you found during your research in collaborative groups, and you want to make sure that your presentation is going to be effective when you're standing up in front of your peers and you're sharing what you found about your topic. So I want to cover some of the kind of do's and don'ts, things that I want you to keep in mind as you're working together on your shared Google presentation to present to the class. So the first thing is about content. I want you to limit your slides to about 10 to 15 slides of content. You will have an additional citation slide at the end, which will need to follow MLA citation format. So know that as a group, collectively, you are going to generate 10 to 15 slides and a citation slide. So you're going to want to break up the work so that one group member is going to tackle 2 or 3 slides to add to the complete presentation. So you want to get a sense as a group of how many slides will you need, what will each slide focus on, and who's going to be responsible for creating each slide. Then as you're working, you want to think about your font. So we're projecting these presentations up on the board while you're standing up and sharing the information with the class. And so it's key that your font is big enough to be seen. So you want it to be 30-point font minimum, and you shouldn't distract. So you want to choose a font style that is clean, it's easy to read, you don't want any embellished fonts or handwritten fonts. And then you want to make sure that every single group member is using the exact same type of font on his or her slides. That way, as you progress through the presentation, you are going to have that uniformity, and changes in the font won't distract your audience either. So decide on a font, a type of font, and a font size, and then stick with it throughout your presentation. It's really important that on any media, so photographs, any images or charts that you might use, that you are citing your media and your resources. So where is all this information coming from? If you're taking it from online sites, that's fine, but you have to make sure you're citing it properly. So when you're including images, one of the resources I would suggest you start with when you're doing an image search is this John Johnston link at the bottom. You're going to get some interesting things pop up there that may not be super relevant, but each of those images is stamped with an attribution stamp at the bottom. It's kind of hard to see on this image, but this is the migrant mother image. It's a very famous image from the Great Depression, and at the very bottom it has the attribution stamp on it. So it automatically comes with that stamp, and you don't have to necessarily add anything below the picture. And then any of the online websites that you're drawing information from, you will also need to cite properly. And I've linked out to the OWL Purdue site from our class website, which will show you how to cite those online resources. And if you're citing images, you can also try the citation machine. And I've linked straight to the link that's used for, you can use it for media as well. Media is key. You don't want to have a bunch of text on your slides. You want your media to tell your story. So as much as you can show your information, the better. That's going to be more visually interesting for your peers. So let the media, the images, the pictures, the graphs tell your story, and avoid trying to explain everything in writing on your slides themselves. This is actually a better example of that attribution stamp at the bottom of this particular graph that I'm using here. So that's what that attribution looks like, that's stamped at the bottom. Media quality. It's key that you're using high quality images, so you want to avoid things like clip art. You want to avoid, which are very informal and almost cartoonish. You want to avoid images that have a water stamp, kind of a print imprint, because they're a stock photo. So this one is both. You can kind of see the imprint in the center of the light bulb, and then the light bulb is like a cartoon character. If you're going to use a light bulb, it would be much more effective to use an actual picture of an actual light bulb. So make sure that media is high quality. Don't use clip art, and don't use anything with a watermark in the middle that designates it as a stock photo. You want your images to be compelling. And because these are expert group investigations, you guys are the experts. You shouldn't have a ton of information on the slide. If you have all of your information listed on the slide, that communicates that you don't know your information. You definitely want to have visual cues on the slide. You want photographs, you want maybe bullet points of things to remind you, but you don't want all your information on the slide. Otherwise, what's the point of you standing up and presenting? We can read, so we could just read all the information off of your slide and post slides online. Part of this is you sharing what you've learned, you kind of synthesizing from all these different places where you picked up information. What are the key points? What are the key components? What are your takeaways about this topic that you think are interesting, compelling, or relevant to the text we're about to start? So the information should be in your brain. It shouldn't be all over the slide. We don't want slides full of text. Otherwise, you get in a situation where really you're projecting a slide and people are just reading, they're not listening to what you're saying, and they're missing the really magical part of your presentation, which is you and your ideas. So when it comes to text, do not write incomplete sentences. Think about words and phrases. And if you're going to use bullet points, is every member of your group going to use bullet points? Because again, that's about uniformity. You want your slides to look similar, as though your group sat down together and really worked out every detail. You don't want the slides to seem oddly different, where the text is a different font size and one person used bullets and somebody else doesn't. So really have those conversations as a group, and when in doubt, less text is always better. And mechanics. We talk about mechanics in your writing all the time. Your mechanics, your ability to spell correctly, your ability to use grammar properly, these are really, really important. And hopefully grammar won't come into play too much, because I don't want you writing incomplete sentences, but your grammar and your spelling reflect your intelligence, your ability, and so you want to put your best foot forward when it comes to creating a Google presentation. So be really meticulous, look very closely. If someone in your group is an extremely strong editor, have them look over all the slides and just, did they notice anything? Did you miss something that they can catch so that there's not an error on your slides? Because you don't want to come off looking unprofessional. Because yes, this is just a presentation to your peers in class, but it's really practice for the kinds of presentations you will be doing in your life beyond high school, college, career. So you want to start training your eye to pick up things like mechanic, to watch things like font size and continuity, uniformity in the way that you cite your resources. And we'll be talking more in class about how do you specifically cite the different resources you're pulling from, but just keep in mind that you have those links to OWL Purdue, you have the links on the citation slide. Please use them, because the worst thing you can do is present somebody else's images or ideas as your own. You really want to give credit where credit is due.